Welcome to the ArchDaily interview. First of all, congratulations on receiving the UIA 2030 award in the SDG 11.1 category, focusing on adequate, safe, and affordable housing for all. So, to begin with, could you introduce yourself and tell us more about the team behind the project?
Thank you so much. My name is Sandhya Naidu Janardhan. I work with Community Design Agency. And to your question about the partners within this project, it's been a massive collaborative effort. In fact, this award and this recognition is a testament to sort of this approach to working on large neighborhood level redevelopment. The project is supported by the Government of India's Housing for All program, and we have really a long list of collaborators, which you will see now on the screen. But most critically, the residents of Sanjaynagar have been incredible partners who have been on this journey with us for the last 8 years, and it continues on, into the future. And our core partner is Snehalaya, an NGO that works in the city of Nagar, formerly known as Ahmednagar city.
Could you tell us about the context of the project and the main challenges you identified at the beginning of the process?
Yes. The context is that we are focused on slum settlements or informal settlements in tier 2, tier 3 cities of India. These are up and coming cities, and one can almost anticipate what would be the future if we continue along the same path of development that you see in the larger metros now. So the context is, Ahmednagar, Nagar is a small city, and this particular slum settlement is on 2 acres of land, and about 209 settlements, which houses nearly 300 families. These families have been living in this particular neighborhood for the last, now I think, 45 to 50 years. And the premise that we started with, or when we go into a community, is to recognize what already really works well in these communities, right? Because that's the reason why they've been living there for so many years. Now they're in the fourth generation population. So in terms of engaging the community, we went in recognizing and understanding what are the successful aspects of this community, and that really helped us in building that relationship with the residents. And what was also very critical is the fact that Snehalaya, our partner, has been working in this particular neighborhood with women and children for about, at that time, for about 18 to 20 years, now 25 years. So that having those kinds of relationships based on trust was very important for us.
So as you mentioned, the project is deeply rooted in the long-term community engagement with over 8 years and ongoing. So could you tell us more about how the relationship with the community first began and how the process evolved?
It started first with, as professionals, we had to do our homework in terms of the the project qualifiers, right? Because this fits within the larger agenda, which is the policy of the Housing for All program. Just very logistically, we had to really understand who owns the land and that can we even rebuild over there. Once we got that clarified with the city, we went to the residents and we started organizing at the larger community level first. So we had this particular community is comprised of families from different castes. We have the caste system in India, and they were all coexisting together, and also people from different religions who had been living together, who had built the community together. So, so that was really sort of the starting point, right? To understand the deep social networks within the neighborhood, the social fabric. Once you start recognizing that, we bring that into the conversations with the community, because how do they build common areas that they use together? You see this in informal settlements. A lot of the life happens outside of the dwelling unit, right? And meeting the community where they are. So it meant meetings late in the nights, meetings over the weekends, because we need to recognize that with participatory processes, to expect them to just come and sit with us in the daytime would mean losing wages. So they shouldn't have to choose between having to do the day's work versus, oh, we need to show up for these meetings because we're going to get homes. So we had a lot of different ways of doing it. But most critically, the biggest sort of key players in this whole initiative are what we call the community representatives. the youth from the community. So they became a bridge our between our organizations and the families themselves, right? And that was incredibly powerful because they knew their community. They know the status and the background status, I mean economic status and the background of different families in the neighborhood. I would like to share a quick anecdote in terms of the impact of having this sort of embeddedness in the neighborhood. COVID hit while we were in the midst of building this project. And being based in Mumbai, our immediate response was, "Oh my God, nearly 300 families have been cut off from services. How are we going to manage this?" But we knew the social partner, Snehalia, would take care of the families. But then how do you take care of 1,200 people, right? And I think, globally people knew that in some of our countries we had a tougher time with a lot of migrant population having to go back to their hometowns and not having access to basic services. But it was the community representatives who said, wait a minute, X number of families need help today. And there are these families who are okay for the next 3 days. And then these number of families are okay for the whole week. And they said, don't send food en masse for everybody. And it was such a moment of revelation for us to understand that sort of deeply embedded community process. So, what we really subscribe to is any of the initiatives that we work on, whether built or unbuilt, tangible, intangible, do these processes help with strengthening communities for such sort of for future sort of facing whether it is climate disasters, man-made, what have you. So that's how we were able to embed in the community.
Yeah. And another major theme highlighted by the award jury was the integration of housing, economic opportunity, and social infrastructure without displacing the existing community, as you mentioned. What lessons from this project do you think are most relevant for rapidly urbanizing cities globally?
The biggest lesson in all of this is ensuring great focus on social infrastructure, because that is pretty much the the DNA of any community, the core DNA of any community, because social infrastructure enables care, between community members. It also enables livelihoods, because if you look at social infrastructure, it becomes a place where you can have different types of activities that happen, whether it's women who are, making snacks in the neighborhood, but the social infrastructure could become a place of distribution, right? Or elderly grandmothers who have to stay on their own in their homes, but if there is a particular focus on having these spaces where different families can interact, there would be other families who would be able to support her when her family is out, making a living. And children, the most important ones, without sort of this infrastructure, which is critical for their growth and development as well. But the very well known theory of eyes on the street, right? With children being able to play, but then also being able to, play in a very safe manner and to just be children. So I think this would be the biggest lesson for any kind of redevelopment in the world, especially in the current trend with housing and real estate development. There is so much focus on extracting the land value, extracting the square footage value in the redevelopment projects, that there's hardly any sort of attention paid to social infrastructure. Social infrastructure has been converted into these paid clubs and gym memberships, and and also paid what do you say, um, different types of houses to bring people together, right? I don't want to name names, but to bring people together. But what about people right outside your doorstep? So this particular challenge is not just something that's in low income communities. This is something which is, a problem in higher income neighborhoods as well. And that kind of is very telling, because through the through sort of what has been termed the deadliest sort of disease or pandemic is going to be loneliness. So I think that would be a really big lesson. And there are ways to quantify it if we really need to address the whole idea of value, attaching a dollar value to it. But that would be the biggest lesson, I think, for everybody, irrespective of economic status.
Yeah, yeah. Why do you think projects like this are important within the broader framework of UN SDGs?
Mm. So I know that the current the big agenda is safe housing for all for this World Urban Forum number 13. Um, Housing actually, when we say housing, there is sort of this approach where you just build housing units. But a successful housing at a neighborhood level is mixed use development. So you need to integrate economic opportunities, you need to integrate care infrastructure, you need to integrate culture, which gets left out very often because it's considered to be sort of low priority. And it's absolutely critical to integrate climate responsive design and architecture. And this is what makes for a really successful neighborhood. And I don't think I need to pontificate on the different types of neighborhoods that have failed, which have been purely housing only, or the dead downtown areas, and then billions of dollars being poured in to revive the downtown areas. I just say convert some of the units into housing, and then everything will take care of itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much and congratulations again for the
Thank
interview.
you.